on the Vince Everett Ellison show. Yeah, it's time for Donald Trump to send the feds down, take over these no-good Democrat-run cities. It's time to send in the federal troops like we've done before. We're going to talk about that today on the Vince Everett Ellison show. This thing started. You know, it's this phrase. It's called Occam's razor. O-C-C-A-M apostrophe S. Occam's razor. It means the simplest answer is usually the correct one. The simplest answer is usually the correct one. Occam's razor. The simplest answer is usually the correct one. You gotta have no conspiracy theory. Question. There's crime in the inner city. Why don't the Democrats stop it or want Donald Trump to come in and help them stop it? The simplest answer is they like crime. All this other stuff, oh, we tried and we can't do it. Donald Trump did it in Washington, D.C., cut crime in half. Yeah, literally. Hadn't had a murder in Washington, D.C. in 2 weeks. Carjackings, everything, crime's cut in half in the city. The people say they love it. Muriel Bowser, the mayor, has finally said, thank you, President Trump. We appreciate it. Now it's time to go to Chicago. And the people of Chicago, Fat Boy Pritzker and Gremlin Brandon Johnson, says they don't want the help. Now, I want you to understand this with this as the context. Over the weekend, these jokers had 7 murders and 47 shootings. Pause for effect. I said 7 murders and 47 shootings. And Donald Trump says, I want to come in and help you stop this. And they say, no! Occam's razor says, why would they do that? They like crime. Now, why would they like crime? Because somebody is getting paid from the crime. Man, you think all that dope being sold in the black community is going into the ether? It's going under. It ain't going under people's mattresses. The biggest business in America is agriculture. Why? Because we all eat all day long. We're eating or we're drinking something, so is agriculture. Second biggest business is industry. Why? You know, we make things, microphones, desks, books. Third, drugs. Most of them illegal. That's right. Drugs is the third biggest industry in America. You think all this fentanyl and stuff is getting over here by accident? And the people that make the money fuel these Democrat Party campaigns. And if they don't get their money, the Democrats don't get their money, and there it is. So how do you stop this? When government has formed an alliance with the criminal element. You do it the way we've always done it. You send in the feds. Our Constitution says that the federal government will guarantee a Republican form of government in the United States of America. That means the people will be, they will have to be served properly by their government officials. And this is how it's supposed to work, y'all. We got this thing called federalism, okay? City governments got your own You got autonomy. County governments, you have autonomy. State governments, you have autonomy. All on one condition. You serve the people properly. Who's going to decide whether you're doing that or not? The feds. We are going to watch you. And one of the things that's going to make you do this right is the threat of us coming down and taking power from you and federalizing whatever the hell it is you're doing. I remember when I started working in South Carolina as a correctional officer. The reason I got the job was because the South Carolina prison system had been sued. It had become antiquated. I mean, they had a prison there that was so old called CCI that when General Sherman came to burn Columbia during the Civil War, he actually put his horses in CCI and let them stay there for a while. And that prison was still there when I started working in South Carolina. So it was an antiquated old prison. And South Carolina had locked up this white guy, and he was a lawyer. And he filed a lawsuit, and the lawsuit was Nelson versus Leak. And he won. And the federal government came down and took over the prison system and told them that this is what you guys are going to have to do to get back into compliance. You got to build so many prisons. They got to have this, they got to have that, they got to have that, they got to have that. And we're going to be down here to make sure that you do it, or we're going to start locking some people up. They said that those prisons violated an American citizen's 14th Amendment right to due process of law. And it was the Fifth Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment. Yep. And so they had to build all of these prisons, and they had to hire correctional officers, and they had to start sending them to these academies. Because before that, you just take a guy off the street, give him a job as a correctional officer, he go in and get to work. But because of this lawsuit, they had to build an academy, and they had to give us tests, and we had to do all of this stuff to become a correctional officer. We had to have the same training as state troopers did. And it made the prison system much more efficient. It wasn't nearly as primitive and mean and antiquated as it was, but it was a federal takeover of the South Carolina prison system. And the feds have done that many times before, when they've seen that states or the local governments have become corrupt. The FBI will come down and investigate, and other people will come. As a matter of fact, that's what the Civil Rights Acts were all about. They started a Civil Rights Commission to come down and investigate complaints. And then if the people were found to be, if the complaints were found to be, had merit, yeah, they would send the FBI down and federal people down, and they would make sure that these people had the right to vote. That's what the federal government does. It's oversight. And many times, it's the oversight that a lot of these local and state and county governments need to keep them in compliance. Because we found out in the United States of America, with all the safeguards that we have, these people will become corrupt. They will steal elections. They'll get a good old boy system up and political machines, pay to play, all of that. Harry S. Truman got involved in politics in Missouri through the Pendergast machine. Tom Pendergast controlled everything inside the state of Missouri. Governorship, senatorships. The Kennedys had a machine inside of Massachusetts. Crump had a machine down in Memphis. Bradley had a machine down in Los Angeles. Tammany Hall was one of the biggest machines up in New York City. Yeah, a lot of these places had machine politics, where you had a group of people who decided who got elected, and they would steal these elections, and then they would take the tax money and they'd divvy it up amongst themselves, whatever the hell they wanted to do with it, and the people were left out in the lurch. And once they got that power, they never let it go. That is New York City. That is San Francisco. That's Los Angeles. That is Chicago. That's Memphis. That's every big city run by Democrats, because the people that live in there are not voting to have this stuff happen to them. They're still in these elections. I mean, the feds have been to me many times. I mean, the Civil War was the biggest intervention. It came, man, $3.2 trillion in today's money. Killed like 400,000 Confederates. Did like $1.5 trillion in damage. But they took it back. At the beginning of the nation had shades, rebellion. George Washington got on his horse, went to stop it. The civil rights movement was a lot of intervention. Black people wouldn't defend themselves, so they had to call the federal government to come down and do it. 100 years just been mistreated. And we can't fight. The white man just too powerful. You had 3 times more black people in South Carolina than you had white men. You had 2 times more in Mississippi. They're about the same in Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana. But of course, that same old canard. We black and we can't do nothing. We got to call the police. We got to call the feds. So call the feds and you're still at the bottom of everything, because until you stand up as men and strive and shine as men, until you stand on your own 2 feet and plow that piece of ground that God gave you, you're going to stay at the bottom. So keep calling the feds here, see what it gets you. Anyway, I digress. So right now, you have a lot of places in America where inner city men, mostly black, not all the time black, but some Hispanic, some white, because the Democrats have been very good at splitting up their families and taking the children away and letting them live with their mamas. These young men have turned into savages. They don't work. And then the cartels come in and they hire them to sell drugs. And they do. And with the drugs come the violence. And then they pay the politicians to make sure that the police don't come down there. And the place becomes a free fire zone. And Donald Trump knows this. And he says, I'm going to come down and clean it up. And the Democrats said, no, you're messing with my gravy train. But see, that's how Donald Trump, he's smart. This is how Donald Trump is undergirding the whole liberal establishment in America. He just don't want to win the next election. He wants to annihilate these people. It's like not just burning up your crops. It's burning up your crops and then going in and getting quicklime and putting it in the ground so you can't grow any more crops for 100 years. It's like pouring gasoline and oil into the ground and mixing it into the ground so nothing will grow there again. That's what Donald Trump's doing. He's going to send the National Guard up in there and find all them little thug jokers who are selling dope, who's working for cartels. He's going to find out who they are, and he's going to uproot the whole thing. Then he's going to run the illegals out. Because see, this is something y'all don't know. If you guys study the Palestinian question over in the Middle East and ask the question, why don't any of the Arab nations take these Palestinians in as refugees? It's because every time they've come in large numbers, they've started raising hell and trying to take over the country. Look up Black September when they were in Jordan, about 2 million of them. The suckers tried to take over the whole country. They tried to overthrow King Hussein back in the 60s. He kicked them out and they went to Lebanon, did the same thing in Lebanon. They kicked them out. So now there's nowhere they can go because everywhere they send them, they raise hell and they start tearing things up. Fast forward, United States of America. Joe Biden let 10 million illegal aliens in the United States of America. And you remember that No King's Day thing they did? Where they was marching and raising all kind of hell and burning up stuff and fighting. What did Trump do? Trump sent in the National Guard and said, I tell you what, you are not going to control the foreign policy of the United States of America. Got so many illegals in this country that they control 22 to 30 seats in the Congress. And they want to bring in another 20 million to control another 40, 50 seats in the Congress. Illegals controlling about 1/3 of the congressional delegation of the United States Congress, which means they control the nation. That's what the Democrats want. Illegals can already vote in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump will put a stop to that. Illegals voting. Oh, these Democrats are sick. So Donald Trump, it's time to bring the feds. It's time to take it over because these Democrats are not going to do it. Case in point. There's this great story in the Washington Post this past Sunday. I'd heard about this before, and I had not forgotten about it, but I was glad to see that the Post finally did a story on it. It talked about what happened, because this is the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. They started revisiting some of the things that happened. And they talked about how the educational system was transformed because of Katrina. It says, the opinion says, never seen before how Katrina set off an education revolution. 20 years after the hurricane, taking stock of the miracle in New Orleans schools. They said miracle. It says after Hurricane Katrina destroyed much of New Orleans, August 29, 2005, the city began a long climb back that remains incomplete to this day. Yet one aspect of recovery began soon after the catastrophe and quickly gained speed. A new approach to public education was introduced. And in 5 years after Katrina smashed into the fabled city, it progressed so far that Arne Duncan, Education Secretary in Obama administration, declared the storm the best thing that happened to the education system in New Orleans. It took a storm to blow it down. And you know what happened? They had to build it back up. It says surveying the devastation that left intact just 16 of 128 schools and destroyed about a third of school buildings. State legislators took an enormous gamble. They fired all 7,000 teachers and sideline unions and invited ambitious people to run the schools and offered parents almost total freedom over where to send their children. Now, these state legislators were Republicans, y'all, and conservatives. These were white Republicans that said, we ain't going to give you any money until you set these children free. This drastic move was backed by rigorous assessment of schools and students' performances. Over the following years, at least 50 of the remaining 75 schools were shut down. 75 schools were shut down or handed to new operators. So over the following years, at least 50 of the remaining 75 schools were shut down or handed to new operators. 50. Now, Tulane researchers have analyzed scores and studies. In this bold experiment, they concluded the New Orleans daring act of liberation from local bureaucrats, converting all city schools into charter schools, publicly funded, but with the freedom and flexibility to set curriculum in line with contractually agreed goals, has been a remarkable success. They took the power from the Democrats and allowed charter schools and private schools to come in and allowed these schools to compete against each other. And the children benefited. They fired all 7,000 of the teachers. And Republicans forced this on a Democrat-run city. It's the same thing Trump got to do in these Democrat-run cities. These Democrat-run places are cesspools. I do this show to tell people that. Here's an example of a city having to be destroyed by a hurricane. And then you still had to force these no good, nasty, slimy, evil Democrats to move. I told they ICE Democrats. They're either ignorant, crazy, or evil. In the same way you had to send the federal government down here in the 60s because black people wouldn't fight back. They had to come down here and straighten this crazy place out down south so that people that wanted to build factories and people that want to put in infrastructure and people that want to come and build businesses will come down here and raise this place up. And now guess what's happening? People are leaving the north again. There used to be a drain, a great migration from the south to the north. My grandparents left. They weren't staying down here. Every educated person left. Now guess what's happening? They're coming back down. Big factories are being built down here, building aircrafts and cars. Texas and Tennessee and South Carolina, Florida. But the feds had to come down here. You look at it, you remember history when we bought the Louisiana Purchase from France, double the size of the country. Then we took Texas and California, New Mexico, Nevada, and many other states from Mexico in 1848. We had all this new land. So we had jokers that would go out there. And of course, as people went out there, what did you have? Lawlessness. Fighting. Killing. Arguing. So what did the United States of America do? They sent the feds out there. They sent the army. Sometimes the Indians would kill people. So they sent the army out there to take care of the Indians. They sent the lawman and the marshal out there to give law and order. And they sent judges. They sent jails. Because you cannot have any civilization without security. Have to do the same thing now. They sent out Wyatt Earp and other U.S. Marshals to go out there and tame the West. And the West, as we know it now, would not exist without these people going out there, taming it, making things legal. There should be no place in America where any American citizen should not be able to walk and have ingress and regress without fear of harm or death. Shouldn't be any place. If you're a mayor of a city and you hear it, you can't go down there, Mayor. Why? Because it's too dangerous. He said, go down there and clean that out. If you are the governor of a state and you hear there's a place in a city where people can't walk, where their houses are getting robbed, where you can't have any stores, where you can't have no commerce, any commerce, because of illegal activity, the government's supposed to call the mayor and say, Mayor, you need some help down there? Well, no, I don't. Well, I'm going to send my folks down there to investigate this. If this ain't cleaned up in 2 weeks, I'm sending people down there. And if you're the president and you get calls that say, hey, man, there's violence down here, there's killing down here, and the mayor and the governor won't do anything, the president's supposed to say, I'll send the National Guard down there. That's how it's supposed to work, because the citizens are not supposed to be mistreated, because you might have yourself a Democrat that is the mayor or a weak governor that won't take control of these situations. This is what the feds are for. When James Meredith was trying to get into Ole Miss, and there was a court order, and Ole Miss said no. John Kennedy sent down, he took the National Guard, he federalized it, got James Meredith into Ole Miss. When George Wallace stood in front of the door, University of Alabama, and said the black children could not enter, they federalized the National Guard, got them in there. When the Little Rock Nine trying to get in that school in Little Rock, Faber said no. Eisenhower sent the 101st Airborne down there and said this court order will be realized. That's what presidents do. And you don't have to wait for a court order. So I applaud the president. Go down there and show Brandon Johnson, the gremlin, and Pritzker, the fat boy, how to keep the American people safe. Show them that just because you didn't vote for me, it does not mean that I don't care about you. We've gotten too used to this. It's like a woman that has a husband who's always drunk on the weekends. And one weekend he's not drunk, and she's happy that he's not drunk. She's happy that he's not violent. That's not normal. She has to understand she's not living normal lives. For people not to sleep in bathtubs at night, for people not to be afraid to sit on their front porches and drink a glass of wine on a cool night, for people to not be able to be afraid to raise up their windowsills to get a breeze, let a breeze blow through their homes because they think somebody's going to crawl through the window. To go through a neighborhood and see bars on windows, to go into stores and see plexiglass and bars up. That's not normal. That's why I left Silver Spring, Maryland, and the DC and the DMV and brought my children up to the Blue Ridge Mountains because I wanted them to understand that this is normal. To be able to walk into a store and not see bars and plexiglass, be able to walk and see your neighbor and speak to them and say, how you doing? Be able to sit out in your front yard and enjoy the weather. To be able to walk down the street and not to fear bullets going over your head. To be able to go to school and not to have to worry about people coming in and shooting you. We have to get back to what's normal in America before my generation dies out and we forget what normal is. And Donald Trump is going to go into these cities and he's going to teach America what normal is again. And I think that is a good thing. I hope you applaud it as I do. I hope that you know that if we don't stop this, this is not just going to stop in Chicago. It's not going to stop in Detroit. It's not going to stop in Atlanta. It's coming to you. These Democrats are evil. They are not going to stop until they're at your doorstep. They're not going to stop until they consume your children and consume everything that you have. They are an evil institution, a cabal of perverts, liars, psychopaths, anti-Christian bigots, thugs, hoes, and rappers. All they do is meditate on blood. And this is our opportunity to stop them all now, like they said in The Godfather, while we got the muscle. And I'm going to keep bringing this to you because I'm here to wake you up. Hope I did you some good here today. Join me again for another edition of the Vince Everett Ellison Show. All right, friends, Vince Everett Ellison is here. I want you to go to my website, and on my website, you're going to see a lot of great stuff, man. You're going to see that we got t-shirts, we got caps, you got my books, my documentaries, you got all kinds of stuff on VinceSpeaksTruth.com. Go there. We're dropping new t-shirts, we're dropping new merchandise. My new book, The End of Tolerance, is there. The End of Tolerance. Make sure you get it. Make it #1. If you got my first 3, get The End of Tolerance. It's just as good. And it's telling us we have to end our tolerance with these leftists, these Democrats. We can no longer allow them to sexually groom our children. We can no longer allow them to castrate little boys and call them little girls, run God out of the public square, take away our guns, take away our sovereignty. No longer allow it. So go on VinceSpeaksTruth.com. That is VinceSpeaksTruth.com. Hit merchandise. You'll see the t-shirts. You'll see the caps. You'll see the books. You'll see the documentaries. You'll see it all. And let's keep this ball rolling. God bless you.